The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Forever Fab podcast with my fabulous guest, Kortney Olson.
Hey girl,
Hey! Now, Kortney, we spoke earlier about your adversity, and you are no stranger to adversity, whether it was alcoholism, whether it was a dysfunctional family, whether drug addiction, or sadly, violence against women. What specifically helped you to overcome all of that adversity?
I would say that's a really good question as well. You are like the highest ranking, best questioning person I've ever spoken to.
I mean, okay, should I call Oprah and be like, Oprah?
Yes, yes.
Or Christian Amanpour, be like, you know what?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh. I mean, and just in general, like, was it your spirituality, or was it your mental resilience, or was it the fact that you were always able to say, you know what, I'm physically strong, and I know that means I'm internally strong as well. So in general, what do you think helped you to overcome all that you've been through?
I think in the beginning, it was my physical strength. It was because I would go into the gym and spend, 2 hours in there a lot of the times. And it gave me, that it was like my superhero cape.
Yeah.
And having that alter ego as well. I had, this alter ego of KO, because those are my initials.
Yes.
And you can still barely see it under Prince's hair.
I was going to say it's under Prince's hair.
Yeah. So that's where the KO tattoo was. And
nice.
So, after the sexual assault, and I still held on to that dream of being a world champion boxer, which was interesting. But so still having that alter ego is kind of a form of protection. And once that no longer served me, and I started to work a program of recovery, it definitely was turning my will over to a power greater than myself. And, it's...
Shall we call that letting go?
Yeah, letting go and letting God, and again, I truly struggled with that in the early times, because I'm like, God, what? Like, I super struggled with it. And so at this point, I've whenever I do a keynote, I talk about, it's called goals, not controls. And of course, there's nothing new under the sun. And I just picked this up from another guy named Mike Dooley, and respun his information and to, fit my story. And that was essentially, he was in The Secret. You remember The Secret way back in the day?
Yes.
Yeah. And how, they were talking about hyper focusing on, well, if you want that yacht, what color is the leather? Is it red?
Yeah.
Then what's the stitching? How does it smell? What's it smell like?
Yeah.
And so we're focusing on the details as opposed to the overall goal, which would be, let's say if it's a car, the overall goal is like, I want a car so I can be more safe when I travel to work.
Yeah.
So focusing on the big goal as opposed to the controls of like, well, what's the leather look like? How does it smell? How much does it cost? And instead being open to the overarching goal. And so for myself, with especially when it it came to business, because entrepreneurship has been almost more difficult than getting off of Oxycontin, and that was my last drug of choice. And
Wow.
that was my last battle, was opioids. And doing this entrepreneurial shuffle has been in an industry that I knew nothing about, and no cash flow, and a very cash heavy industry has been absurd. But realizing, okay, goals not controls. What's the overarching goal has been to teach women self-love and create a sisterhood, and that was it since 10 years ago with Confidence by Kortney. And then again, it was the same thing with Camp Confidence. And even when I was doing camp, and I remember getting really upset because I was like, well, Obama hasn't called me yet. I'm failing. My ego's so out of control.
Because he was afraid you were going to take his job, girl.
Oh, that's what's up. There you go. There you go. I really thought, I'm failing. Obama hasn't called me and said, hey, I heard what you're doing down there. Let's bring this back to the United States.
Yeah.
So I would have these moments where I'd be like, oh, this is, I'm failure. What am I doing with my life? But I just kept showing up.
Yeah.
So as long as, in my experience, I show up, but I don't show up and try and run the show. I show up and
ready
ask
to
for
receive
guidance. Yes. So when I show up, and I'm actually going to write that down.
Yeah.
That was good. You just inspired that.
You see, we're collaborating already, Kortney. I mean, it's just written. It is.
Up.
It just is. It's just going to be.
Yeah, 100%. That was beautiful. So when I, showed up to show up and not run the show, I would turn my will over, and it was like an instant release, because I didn't have to have the answers. I just had to be open to do God's job. Yeah, I'm an agent of God, whoever God is, Yeah. The aliens, for all I know, I don't know. But
well, you never know. I mean, isn't the government finally admitting that yes, they're unidentified flying objects? Especially, isn't Area 52 in Las Vegas?
Area 51 is in Las
51,
Vegas.
There you go. So,
yeah, I know.
Where I got 52 from? I got 52 from food52.com, because that's another place. I've been ordering stuff like crazy.
You're so funny.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I better write that down too.
Food52.com. I just gave them a plug, but oh well.
There you go.
Yes, you showed up, yes, open and ready to receive. Yes, thank you for that. I do think that's part of the success. If there is to be any, and success could be you learn something different or you unlearn something. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you derive some magnanimous or huge thing from an experience, but you showed up, and that's half the struggle.
Right. 100%.
Now, who or what, let me see, how can I word this question? Was there a person or a particular experience that you had that, when looking back on it, was an unexpected teacher in your life? Like maybe you were going through it like, what? Like, this is no joke. But did that thing, when you look back on it, when you got past it and you look back on it, what was that thing, or who was that person who actually became an unexpected teacher in your life?
It was that journalist. When it happened, I was distraught. I was devastated. I was angry. And that whole experience, which was traumatic, it was truly traumatic, because it wasn't like just being bullied at the workplace. It was on a national scale.
Yeah. In many countries, international.
Yes. Yeah. So,
he blew up your spot. He blew up your spot.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you got through it and thrived.
And turned that into Camp Confidence, and then which has now turned into GRRRL. And what will become of that, I don't know. I'm open to it, and we'll find out. But
excellent. I'm excited for you.
Those horrible situations, like when people say, "Oh, I'm going through a divorce," I'm like, "Congratulations!" That's great.
Yeah,
outstanding.
Yeah, and they must look at you like, "What?"
Yeah, and I'm like, "Don't worry, call me in a year, and we're gonna laugh at this, because you're gonna be like, you are so right." We go through these things and they seem so horrible, but then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, Yeah. It's like that horrible Garth Brooks song, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers or whatever. I'm not a big country person, but
I know. I was going to
the
say
lyrics of that. Yeah. No.
I hear he's
But,
a great lyricist, but I don't know
yeah.
his music.
You're not missing much.
Tell me one thing that most people do not know about you, seeing as how you've been plastered all over the headlines internationally in past years. But tell me something that most people don't know about you.
That's a really good question. And actually, several things come to mind. It's, I still even bite my tongue because there's certain topics I'm very keen to explore and talk about and break down. But we're in such this place of cancel culture now, which has become a real problem. It's really problematic.
Yes.
And so a few things came to mind, and I was like, all right, just put the brakes on for that. We'll do that on our third podcast or something.
Okay.
And I would say, just keep it lighthearted. And this is in my book. It's part of the story and literally everything is in that book.
Yes.
I mean, there's, as I say, no scone has gone unturned.
Wonderful. I can't wait to read it.
Yes. But I slept with a baby blanket until my husband lost it, really.
Oh, no. Like into your adulthood.
Yep. I had that thing. It was my security, and my ex wouldn't let me bring it into the bed because it was so dingy. I had to hand wash it because it was going to fall apart. And when I met my husband and I was going back, he came and he was courting me, and he'd fly over and, meet me here. And then one time he said, "Can I take your blanket? Because it smells like you." And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, he was so sexy. He's just such a love.
Oh my gosh. That's great.
Yeah. But then he lost it.
He was like, you know what? Once or twice is cute, but.
Yeah, right. He left it at like a service department with the manager, and it got thrown out, I think, with the towels. And he paid $1,000 for a private investigator to try and find it, and it never came up.
Oh, you know what? I have to say, that sounds like it was an okie doke. Like, oh yeah. I don't know where your blanket was. Oh my God, let me help you find it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's like, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Well, he sounds brilliant. He sounds fantastic.
He truly
happy
is.
For you.
Thank you.
Speaking of, other than that blanket, what do you currently do for self-care? I mean, you no longer have the blanket, but what do you currently do for self-care?
Yeah. I work out. I train 5 days a week. I wake up and I do my best. I still haven't adopted a daily meditation practice, but I've recently become a master facilitator in Psych K. And Psych K is a modality to access your subconscious. It's like NLP on steroids.
Okay, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah. So, you got tapping, hypnosis, all these different modalities. Yes. But when I had discovered this 6.5 years ago, and I believe this has contributed to the success of Girl Clothing as well, I didn't stick with it because I wasn't great at self-muscle testing. Yes. And I'm the type of person where if I'm not good at something straight away, then I don't want to do it. Got it.
Yeah.
My ego doesn't like it. And so I picked it back up earlier this year and have become passionate about redoing it and have become comfortable with muscle testing on myself and others. And so I sit and I work on transforming limiting beliefs. And I do about 10 minutes a day in the morning, and just sit with that, and it's been super helpful. Helpful.
It's Psych K. How do you spell the Psych? Is it PSYCH? Okay.
Yep. So Psych, mind, and then the K stands for key. And what I love about this modality is my ultimate goal is to become an instructor, because there's only like 35 globally. The originator of the modality is very protective of it, which I can appreciate. Yeah. And but the thing I love the most about it is that there's no ego in it. Whereas if you go to like an NLP practitioner or somebody's doing something to you, or on you, whereas this is with you. So I'm simply a facilitator.
Facilitating,
reading off of a sheet of paper and learning, because you're so good at being interested instead of being interesting. And I'm still stuck in that because, it's a process, I suppose, but I'm working on being interested and not interesting. And so it's a constant reminder for me to say, okay, great. Well, you think you can want to pontificate and give people advice or plant seeds? Well, shut up and let them do their thing. This is their experience, so it's been great for me in that regard as well. So it's a little bit of self-care, a little bit of personal development, professional development, all wrapped up into one.
Well, Kortney, I have to admit, part of the reason why I love interviewing people is because I have fully accepted that I am no longer interesting. So it better serves me to be interested.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair play.
It is what it is. I accept it.
Yeah.
Now, what is your personal beauty or skincare routine?
It's garbage. I mean, it's garbage. I will say this. I have an amazing woman in Las Vegas who, because I've got some following, she hooks me up and I'll do some content for her.
Nice.
But I've had, in the past 12 months, I can't remember when my first one was, but we'll just say in the past 12 months, I've had a PRP facial.
One of my favorites.
And then, yes, I did the BBL just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. She's hooking you up.
The broadband. Yeah. And that they, numbed the face, did the laser, brought out the pigment. And I think I need another treatment. And then they'll do the microderm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, you don't have to do it yourself. If you have people, then that's just as good.
But I definitely need to get, I'm always like buying new skincare and then not using it. I'm at least sticking to sunscreen now.
Yes, at least, right?
Yeah, yes. I've been super blessed with having good skin. I'm very grateful for that.
I can tell. That's why I asked you. I was like, what are you doing for that glorious skin?
Yeah.
Well,
but,
if you ever need to borrow skincare, I got to tell you, I've got cabinets full of stuff.
I do. If you sell one, I'm interested because I need to find one and stick with it because and I don't know if this is true, but if you use different products continually, your skin's not happy with that, right?
It's interesting. I don't think there's any real scientific data or evidence to suggest that you have to stick with one particular line in perpetuity. I'm such a nerd that for me, I break down products. I look at labels and I sort of evaluate and assess every single ingredient. So for me, I personally think it's not a bad idea to change, especially to be in line with the environment and in line with the seasons, right? You're not going to use the same sort of stuff that you're using when it's summertime that you would necessarily use in the winter, would you? I mean, people do, and it's fine, but I don't. So I think it's still, the verdict is still out on that.
So we'll trade secrets because I would love to know what you've got, and I'll send you leggings. Yeah, good.
I got plenty. Now, we talked about skincare and skincare products. What about supplements? Now, obviously, you are an advocate of good nutrition. Do you believe in supplements? Do they work for you?
I do. I take more supplements than Chuck Norris. I mean, it is ridiculous. So because of my Graves, I take a lot. And my nutrition, I eat clean, but I don't think I get everything that I need, because I do travel a lot and so forth. But I definitely, I take a lot of vitamin D, especially right now with what's going on. So vitamin D, glutathione, I take, an estrogen supplement. I take DIM. I take, oh my gosh, there's so many I can't even. And then of course the hormones, pregnenolone, DHEA. I'm also taking a low dose naltrexone, which has literally changed my life with the Graves' disease. So that's being used to treat autoimmune disorders and bringing the inflammation down in the body.
Yes.
And then, from green supplements to I supplement protein. I take a lot of protein, and I generally eat plant-based.
Yes.
About 80 to 90%. I'm not a devout vegan. I would like to for the animals, but it's not super practical for me. But so a lot of plants, a lot of plant-based in my diet, and then fish oil. I take a structured silver compound, which is like colloidal silver.
Yep. I know. I was on the colloidal silver too. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm with you. I like supplements. I take them
just
also.
Visioning my shelf at home, and it's like overwhelming because I'm like, I know I'm leaving out about 25 supplements.
All good.
Yeah.
I think the verdict is still
recommend.
out on that too. I mean, I think for some people they work, for others they don't. And it's consistency, how much. I mean, there's so many variables, right?
That's true. And beliefs, if you believe it, or if you read the China study and you think you pee it out, then that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. Now, what is the one thing you say to yourself every day or every other day when you look into the mirror?
I don't say much when I look in the mirror. It's usually a real quick, like, powdered foundation, mineral sunscreen, blah, blah, blah. And then I run out the door. But every day when I wake up, I connect with a higher power and I say, my prayer sounds something like this. Hey, morning. Thanks. Guide me. That'd be great. Appreciate it. Peace out.
Yeah.
I don't get on my knees and dear God, I'm just like, yo, whoever you are, can you guide me and direct me? Let me do your will, not mine.
Yeah.
It's that simple, but that's what I do every day, is I make that conscious connection with the power greater than myself and remind myself that when I run the show, I run it till the wheels fall off, and it's not pretty. But when I turn over my will and I say, just show me what I need to do. And I still take my will back every 5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I'm in that stage with my business where, I'm walking a thin line between being bankrupt and a millionaire. And so it's like every 5 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, trust the universe.
Yep.
And even if everything did go tits up, then it's what's next.
Yeah.
This is all part of the plan.
Right. But it is very difficult. I mean, to your point, it is very difficult to take a leap knowing that a net is there. I mean, everyone says, oh yeah, but the net is there. Just take a leap. It's like, Can I get a parachute just in case?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not into this trust fall thing.
Yeah, it's really challenging.
Yeah.
Ms. Kortney, this is our last question. I can't even believe it. I could go on for hours, but I know you have very important things to do. This is the Fab Five. So what are your top 5 recommendations for living a beautiful, fabulous, and confident with a K life?
Oh, I love it. You are so good.
I'm going to write these down.
Okay. My top 5 are get into service.
Okay.
That's a direct way out of self-pity. It's so easy for me to get stuck in self-pity, but as soon as I'm helping somebody else, it makes me feel purposeful and reminds me that, there are people out there who are doing it way harder, and it just takes me straight out of self-pity. So get into service.
Perfect.
And it can be small. You don't need to start a charity. It can be, helping someone cross the street, opening the door, smiling at somebody who drives by you.
Yeah.
Super simple. Second one is to do the work. Take responsibility for your higher education. And that doesn't mean a master's degree or a college degree. That means expanding your mind and spending, 10 minutes listening to a TED Talk every day, or a podcast like this, or, anything really that's going to move you forward. Third thing is level up your circle. I heard years ago, we become the sum of the top 5 people we hang around.
Wow.
And if you're not around people who are pushing you to do better and calling you on your BS and coddling you, or just feeling you full of their drama, we are not to grow. We got to be around people that we want to chase after and aspire to be like. And also be in, win-win relationships where it's not just a take, or a give. So leveling up your circle and feeling good about cutting people off.
Yeah.
Fourth one, especially for women, is to learn effective communication. It's super easy for us to become resentful and not speak our truth. Because that's how we're programmed. We believe that we're told rather that we're being bitchy, overbearing, whereas
Yeah.
boys are told they're being leaders and assertive.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So, it's taking the initiative again, this is taking responsibility for your higher education, but specifically zoning in on effective communication. So, when your neighbor comes and asks you, hey, can you walk my dog while I'm out of town? And you can say, Sally, I'd love to, but I can't. I've got X, Y, and Z on. Or just simply, no, I can't.
Yeah.
And smile. And it takes practice.
It does.
It takes practice. Just like the first time I went to the gym and attempted a bicep curl, it felt really awkward. But now I take 50-pound dumbbells. I'm like, what about it, boy? You want to come at me? Let's go. I walk into the gym and I'm like, this is my domain, But when I first walked in there, it's like, hey, it's very uncomfortable. So the same can be said with effective communication, and you practice. And that's probably my fifth thing is repetition is the mother of all skill. And I went to a leadership conference and we were told we had to memorize a portion of Tommy Boy. It was the script out of this scene in the movie in Tommy Boy. And it was literally like 5 pages long.
Oh, wow.
And it was a 2.5 hour lunch break for us to do this with one partner. And I said, this is impossible. You've got to be kidding me. And it was such a great experience to learn hands-on, like, okay, if you sit down and you intently focus on that and say, right, this is what I'm doing. And it was playing on a loop in the background, the video, that part of the movie and reading it. After 2.5 hours, we had these 5 pages memorized. And it was such an eye-opening experience to really learn that repetition is the mother of all skill.
Wow.
That's how you build confidence is just do it again and again and again and again and again and lay the blueprint. And then it becomes a part of your subconscious.
DNA.
It's a part of you. Yeah. And then you go from like thinking to feeling to doing naturally.
Yeah. That's wonderful that you ended with the theme of confidence with a K on your last Fab Five. You just got it all together, sister. I'm telling you, you are so impressive, Ms. Olson.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to reshare some of these clips. We had an awesome conversation. You were fantastic.
Thank you.
Like I said, let me get you those titanium leggings and we'll swap skincare tips. And when I come out to New York or you come to Vegas, we'll hug it out in person.
Absolutely.
Together we are stronger.
Absolutely. Now, let me confirm that I have your email address. It is Kortney at GRRRL.com, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Perfect. So I will send you a follow-up email. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your brilliance, your story, your journey. You're absolutely inspiring. Namaste and enjoy Comic-Con.
I will, girl. Have a great day.
You too. Take care. Bye now.
All right. Bye, Doc.
Bye.
Bye.
This brings us to our close of this week's episode of the Forever Fab podcast with my guest, Kortney Olson. Are you ready to change the world? Do so in fabulous leggings purchased on GRRRL.com. That's GRRRL.com. You may purchase Kortney's book, Crushing It, How I Crushed Diet Culture, Addiction, and the Patriarchy on Amazon.com. And get in on the movement by following on IG at girl_clothing. And you may also follow Kortney on IG at Kortney_Olson. Thank you for listening to this week's Forever Fab podcast episode. Until next time, stay beautiful inside and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.